Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the OSEP quarterly call with Parent Centers. Today, right before we get started, I just wanted to point out a couple things. All participants are in listen-only mode. We are recording this call. It will be available online later. We just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that it was being recorded. There is a handouts section where the PowerPoint is available currently for download. And if at any time during today's presentation you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat space and we will make sure to get those answered. At this time, I would like to introduce Carmen Sanchez, and I am going to turn the presentation over to Carmen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carmen Sanchez, lead with the Parent Center program. You'll notice in the chat space we have the link should you need an audio transcript of what's going on. So please follow the link and you will be connected to the real-time audio captioning in a separate window. So let me actually start the slideshow. Here we go. Oh. Okay. So today is our quarterly call with all the parent centers, the parent training information centers, and the community parent resource centers that are funded through the Office of Special Education Programs. So today we have several topics that we want to discuss. Most of these are programmatic topics. We will be discussing some small updates in terms of your website accessibility. We will also talk about the program measures collection for 2017. In addition, I would like to discuss new requirements for annual reports. And then lastly, Deborah Jennings from the Center for Parent Information and Resources will discuss new resources available through the CIPR that we really would like you to explore and take advantage of. So in terms of web accessibility, as many of you know, some of you have gotten that fact that you're being investigated by the Office of Civil Rights for violations of your website accessibility. We are working with the Office for Civil Rights in order to provide some sort of general information to all of you as parent centers around what you can do in order to make your websites as accessible as possible, to follow the law, but also to respond should you get any kind of complaints. So we're working with the Office of Civil Rights. I wish we had some more information for you right now. We actually don't have a lot of new information from the office in terms of providing some sort of very general information specifically for your needs. I did discuss it with my contact there in the Office for Civil Rights right now, and she's going to go and recheck to see what they can do in order to provide general information. We have provided information to the Office for Civil Rights about the parent centers, about what kind of organizations you are, the kinds of budget constraints you're under, the fact that you're funded through other sources, not just through the federal program. So they're very aware of you as parent centers and both the resources you have and also your constraints. They are extremely open to having individual conversations with your centers since they stress the consent agreements should you be one of the people who are under investigation and they've received a complaint about you, that consent agreements are open to negotiations. So they really would like to welcome having some sort of individual conversations with you. If you need further support in starting those conversations with the Office for Civil Rights, please don't hesitate to reach out to your project officer, and then we'll make sure that we can be of any service to you in terms of having those conversations with the Office of Civil Rights. In addition, you can receive technical assistance on making your websites as accessible as possible before you actually receive a complaint. Most of the technical assistance, as you know, come from your regional parent technical assistance centers, but there's also some technical assistance that you might ask your project officer for or ask for any kind of information from them. But reach out to your regional parent technical assistance centers, and they will give you as much information they have about making your websites accessible before a complaint. We know that it's been a topic in a lot of your either a monthly call or also in the regional meetings have also had this topic on there. So take advantage of the technical assistance they can provide to you so that you can make your website as accessible as possible, even if you're not the object of a complaint. So, in terms of the program measures collection in 2016, I want to give you an update as to what happened this year in terms of how you all did on the 2016 program measure collection. And also, I would then like to discuss what we're going to be doing for this coming year. So, for this coming 2017 data collection, 31 centers have already been chosen, and they were chosen randomly to submit service descriptions for the short-term measures collection. And the short-term measures, as you know, there's 4 of them, but the ones that you have to provide information to us about are your quality, relevance, and usefulness. So the 31 centers were already chosen, like I said, randomly. They were notified on Monday, December 12th, that they were chosen to submit a service description for the short-term measures. I provided the study group, which is our contractor, with the contact information for those centers that were chosen. In addition, I provided the list to the regional parent technical assistance centers. So they have that list. I did not provide them with the general mailbox. I provided them with the project director email. So you should have received notification if you were chosen. If you have a question as to whether or not you were chosen, you can certainly reach out to your parent, to your regional PTAC, and ask them whether or not you're on the list, and for some reason you weren't notified. But I'm fairly confident that those of you who were notified have received notification. Let me also clarify that if you were chosen for the collection in 2016, you should not be chosen this year. We make certain that centers are not chosen 2 years in a row. So if for some reason you're notified this year and you knew you were chosen last year, please get in contact with the study group, get in contact with your project officer, get in contact with me, and we'll see what we can do in terms of fixing the situation. Also, if this is your first year being funded as in this case, it's the CPRC, because that was the last competition we had. If this is the first year you were funded as the CPRC, please know, and you were never funded as a CPRC before, you should not be in the pool to be included this year, to be chosen as a center, to be chosen for this program measures collection. If you were a parent training information center that was brand new, had never served as a parent training information center starting in with October 1st last year, 2015, you were not included in the 2016 pool, so you were not chosen in 2016. However, because you have already been functioning as a parent training information center for a year, you were included in the pool. So those of you who were brand new, had never served as a parent training information center before October 1st, 2015, if you were chosen this year, that's appropriate, because you were in the pool for the 2017 data collection. Like I said, if you were chosen to be in the pool, let me just go over what's expected of you. You were asked by the study group to submit 3 services, your top 3 services, the services that are used most often. Once you submit those 3 services, they will pick one of those services and say, out of that service, you need to submit a full service description to us along with materials, and that must be submitted no later than January 16th. So if you are chosen December 12th, next Monday, December 19th, you will be told which service you have been asked to provide, and then you have until January 16th to submit your service description. I will talk a little bit about the technical assistance available to you in a little while, but I want to stress, if you were asked for service descriptions on Monday and you're one of the 31 centers chosen, please listen to the webinar that we recorded that's available on the SIPR on parentcenterhub.org. All you have to do is type in OSEP webinar and you'll see that recording. Please listen to that recording, which also has a transcript with it, and listen to our advice in terms of how you describe the services that you want to have included in the pool. So for example, do not say one of the services you provide is telephone consultation. That is not useful to the study group, and it won't be useful to you in creating a service description. So please be very specific about the kinds of services. So if it's instead of, for example, in this case, if instead of just sort of simply saying telephone technical assistance, you talk about telephone technical assistance to a particular population, or telephone technical assistance around transition to post-secondary options. You specify what kind of telephone assistance you're specifically discussing, and then that will make it easier for the study group to determine what service they would like you to provide a description of. In addition, for the program measures collection, there also, the other short-term measure is an index of cost, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. That is going to be based on the October service counts that was submitted to the Center for Parent Information and Resources. I think all of you submitted your service counts to them at the end of October, maybe beginning of November. It's really important that those numbers are accurate, because it's what we use in order to calculate an index for the cost measure. So that's going to be used by the study group to do that. No further action is required by you. You've already done the work of submitting your service counts. In terms of the long-term measures, we are collecting them this year, but again, this will not require you all as parent centers to do anything other than what you're going to be doing as the normal part of business. So I want to stress that this is not anything new. We are collecting the long-term measures this year. They were not collected next year. We have a new long-term measure. You see it up there. Parents served by the Parent Training Information Center program will be available to work with schools and service providers effectively in meeting the needs of their children. That long-term measure and the old long-term measure, which is how informed parents are about their children's and their own rights, that is calculated, the response to that is calculated from the program measure survey results that you also are providing to the Center for Parent Information and Resources in November. So that information you provided, remember when the Center for Parent Information and Resources sent you sent them an unduplicated list. They sent you back that list in order in terms of who you should get in contact with and do the survey, what parents you should contact, administer the survey, and which responses they wanted back from you. That information is going to be used in order to determine the long-term measure. So it's really important that, again, you did that, you submitted it to the Center for Parent Information and Resources, because the study group will take that information and determine the long-term measures for this year. Because we have a new long-term measures, they're just calculating the baselines for subsequent years. More information, even if you were not among the 31 centers chosen for this year, more information about the long-term program measures is available at the link that Deborah just put up on OSEP webinars, and you can hear all about the long-term measures, how they're done, and what the implications are for future years. So the results in 2016. Notice that in 2016, our targets for quality, relevance, and usefulness were 97%. We did not meet those targets. You'll see that it's 92.9%. We don't find this as being particularly worrisome. The reason we did not meet that criteria is because out of the 28 centers that submitted descriptions last year, 2 did not meet the criteria for high quality, high relevance, and high usefulness. And it actually was the same 2 that did not meet the criteria for these three measures. That's 2 out of 28. We recognize as OSEP that it's becoming more and more difficult to meet these very high targets without having 100% being high quality and relevance and usefulness. Subsequent years, starting with next year, the target is going to go down to 93%, and with 31 centers, that means we can still have 2 not meet the target and still meet our targets for the program. So with 31 centers, if 2 do not meet the standards for high quality, high relevance, and high usefulness, we will still be able to be over 93% and meet the target. So that's part of what we're doing in terms of looking at these program performance measures. I also want to say I've looked through the actual descriptions, and I'm familiar with the projects, I'm familiar with the services that the projects provide, and I do think in this case it's really a question of not having descriptions that do justice and are not as complete as they could be in terms of the actual work that you do. It isn't a question whether or not, in my opinion, the services are necessarily high quality, high relevance, or usefulness, but rather whether or not that the service descriptions and the materials you use to prove the high quality, relevance, and usefulness, whether or not they do justice to your service. So, you know, I know some of you are chosen virtually every other year, and it gets really difficult to be able to keep up a really high quality description, but it's really important that you take the time to really do a high quality description that does justice to the kind of work that you're doing. In terms of the cost, our index cost is not a dollar amount, it's simply an index. We had as a target for 1.1 for many, many years, and that would mean basically the ratio between the number of services that you reported and the overall program budget, which is $27,411,000, that when you calculated that, you would get at 1.1 or lower. We have met that cost pretty consistently, and this year you'll see that, and we've hovered around 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. You see this year significantly reduced at 0.84. I really think this has to do with the fact that you all have a much more standard way of counting your services, and that has led to reporting, I think, more services that you're providing, and more accurately. We've also seen a real increase in the number of website hits that your websites experience, and that also relates to the cost, because this cost measure is used by calculating website hits, individual assistance calls, training numbers, newsletters being put out, all those figures. And again, there's more information that's available on the Parent Center Hub in terms of this particular topic, available to you in terms of what actually is used to calculate the cost. But again, we more than met the target. And as I mentioned, this year we did not collect any of the numbers related to whether or not parents are informed about their rights, or whether or not parents know how to work together with schools and providers in order to provide services to their children. So it's not applicable because it wasn't collected this year, but next year we will be collecting them. As I mentioned, the targets for the short-term measures, quality, relevance, and usefulness, will be changing to 93% for 2017. For 2018 and subsequent years, target for the short-term measures will actually go down to 90%, because again, we're getting ourselves into a situation where it's either 100% or we don't meet the targets, and it hasn't really been fair to the program. We are keeping the target for the cost measures. It will remain unchanged. It's still going to be an index of 1.1, and then the targets for the long-term measures will be established after we collected for 2017, and we'll establish what those measures should be for 2019, 2021, etc. Again, the long-term measures are collected every other year, so we'll have a sense of what they are. So what are some resources? First of all, we've established a performance measure work group in the SIPR workspaces that are available to all parent centers. So if you're in the SIPR workspaces, type in and search for performance measures. You can join that work group. In that work group right now, we have 3 annotated exemplar service descriptions. I hope to have some other ones up soon. And you can download those service descriptions and the kinds of materials they use in order to demonstrate what they had in their service descriptions. You can use those. We have one from CPRC. We have two from PTIs. So you get a good range of the kinds of services that are available and how to do those kinds of service descriptions. Again, this is another link to how you can get the recorded webinar from the repository, and take advantage of your regional PTACs available to provide technical assistance to you in terms of the program measures. You can certainly reach out to your project officers or project officer also, but the regional PTACs have not only this year's annotated exemplar service descriptions, they have service descriptions from other years, but they would be a really good resource for you. I strongly recommend that you use them also, because sometimes it's very helpful to get sort of somebody who knows enough to ask the right questions, but may not know a lot about the minutia of the kinds of services you're providing. They might give you some really good feedback on what your description is and whether or not your description, like I said, is doing a good job and is commiserate with the kind of work that you're doing. So please do take advantage of the regional PTACs. I want to go back and clarify another issue. If you are an organization that has multiple parent training information centers, for example, the 3 PTIs in Florida and the 3 PTIs in Texas, 2 PTIs in California, it's the same organization that has those grants. When we do the randomization to choose the projects, we treat those as one project since they do the same work, only it's different regions within those areas. So you should not, again, be chosen. You shouldn't have like Region 1 chosen one year and Region 2 chosen the next year, because we keep them together as one. So I just wanted to give you a heads up too, that if for any reason, and I looked through the list, I don't think it happened, but if for any reason you were chosen last year, your organization was chosen last year, and your organization is chosen again this year, please do let us know, and we can see what we can do about that. I had another thought, but I'll try to remember it again when I go to it. But I strongly recommend that you join the Performance Measures Work Group in the SIPRA workspaces. And that's also a good place, by the way, to ask questions and get some of your questions answered and find out what other people are doing and get that kind of support. Okay. So we're going to be doing some work around improving annual reports, which goes back to the point I just forgot, which is the timetable for you submitting your descriptions is a little earlier than in past years. It's about 2 weeks earlier than in past years. In past years, you've had until the end of January if you were chosen to provide a service description. This time we're only, unfortunately, giving you until the middle of January. We realize this is, you know, it's a hard time since the requests are coming out in the middle of when people go on vacation and go on breaks. But the reason we're doing that is because of what we're going to be asking you to do relative to annual reports. The regional PTACs were very insistent that, and they were absolutely right, that we move up the timeline for the performance measures collection, because that would then mean that you could be finished with that and do what we're going to be asking you in terms of improving the annual reports. So I'm glad they mentioned that. I think that those of you who will be doing both will get a little tiny bit of a breather in between having to do more for us. So one of the things that we as project officers, when we read your annual reports, there's been an inconsistent quality in terms of the annual report. Sometimes in your annual reports there's been missing and incorrect information. Sometimes we've worked with some of you, and as you know, we've asked you to submit it multiple times, and I think all of that has been somewhat stressful. We are under the pressure to approve your reports in a timely manner in order to be able to then approve you for continued funding for next year. We know how stressful it is sometimes. It's like I said, it's a little stressful. So we're trying to come up with a way in which it might make it easier for you to improve your annual reports. The other thing that made annual reports a little bit problematic last year was the first year in which we gave you some new language, new requirements related to how you were going to report on your program measures in your annual report. We're not sure that was necessarily as clearly understood, and we also recognize it takes multiple times to sort of get a hang of how to do some of this reported. We also saw that there was a high correlation between those of you who submitted shells to us as project officers, and strong annual reports that came after that. So because of all of that, we really felt that we needed to rethink maybe how you would be submitting the annual reports this year. So I've just noticed, and I didn't notice it before, that there were, I think, questions related to the program measures. I'm going to take just a little bit of breather and answer those questions first before I go in and talk to you more about the annual reports and what we're going to be doing this year. Jennifer?
Yes, the first question came in was a clarifying question. It said the email we received says we should provide the 3 services to the study group by 12/19, and then the study group will contact us again and ask us to provide more detailed information on one service from your original list. The question then is, do we know the date by which they will tell us which one to do the in-depth description on?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for clarifying that. You have to submit it by the 19th. I think I misspoke and suggested that they would respond to you by the 19th. No, you have to submit that by this coming Monday, the 19th. They will probably turn around that in 2 or 3 days. We talked about the need for you to get that information prior to going on the holidays, and many people close up for the week between Christmas and New Year's. So they're trying to turn it around in 2 or 3 days, and hopefully no later than the end of, which is, I guess, is the 23rd, the end of that week. So that's what they're shooting for, is to get it out to you all in 2 or 3 days so you can go have your break, but have a sense of what it is that you need to do once you get back.
Okay, and then the second question was, given the data used for cost calculation for parent centers, as we work to revise our data points we report in our annual performance continuation report, that means that we need to continue to include all of those data points in our revised list that we include in our report.
Not sure what the question is. Let me see if I can pull that up a little bit. Yes. Okay, so in other words, because it's being used to calculate it, because it's been used to calculate the cost measure, does that mean that you then have to resubmit those numbers in your annual report? Not necessarily. One, the time period for the cost measure is from October 1st to September 30th, which coincides with your grant year. The time frame for your annual reports is always March 1st to February 28th. So we know that some of those numbers, if they were, let's say one of your goals were around websites, that those website hits wouldn't necessarily coincide exactly with the ones for the cost measures. So that's fine, because the time period is not exactly the same. But in terms of whether or not you have to resubmit all those numbers again, no, you don't have to. It's the SIPR gets that information, and then we as project officers also have that information for our centers, so we know what you all reported. So there's no reason for you to duplicate that unless, for example, again, it has to do with a particular measure on your report. So let's take training, for example. You had targets in terms of how many families you were going to serve through your trainings. You're going to report on that on your annual report. But because it's a different time period, let's say your total from October 1st to September 30th was 279. It can be 280 67 from March 1st to February 28th, because it's just a slightly different time period, and that's okay. So I think I may have gotten a sense of what the question was.
And if the question wasn't, if you need some other clarifying things, you can always, put that into the chat box and we can make sure that we get it to Carmen.
Yeah.
The next question was that if you've been asked to submit services in the past, is there an issue with repeating some of the services that you offered to the study group 2 years ago?
No. You can, if they continue to be the major services you provide, you can give it to the study group. I think they try to keep track of what they've already asked you for. Maybe suggest, you'd provide a description on a different service, maybe not, but no, that's fine for you to give them the same services. My caution is, again, let's say you gave them the same service, they picked the same service for you to do a description. If you go back and say, well, I'll submit the description I submitted 2 years ago, there may be some changes between now and 2 years. There may be ways in which you can improve it that you really should think about, because again, you want to put in a service description that really does justice to what you're doing. So try not to use that as a way of perhaps not being as vigilant in your description. So, okay.
Okay, and then the last question that we have is, what is a shell report?
Okay, so we're going to talk about what the shell report is right now. A shell report is exactly, let's say where you write out what you're going to be reporting on, but you have no data. You're just going to say, this is what my report will look like. These are the objectives. These are the measures. These are my targets, but I don't have data yet. I just know that this is what I'm going to be reporting on. That's what we refer to as the shell report. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to be, some of our expectations. But like I said, the reason why we want to think about improving annual reports, the reason why we're going to start doing this new process that I'm going to outline now, is because I think ultimately it will be proved to be easier for everyone, and you will submit better annual reports in the very first submission in G5. And that's really what we're after. So let me tell you what we're planning on doing. So a shell, as I mentioned, of your APR will be submitted by all projects by March 3rd. So by March 3rd, you will submit to your project officer as a Word document and as an attachment in an email, not in G5, in an email, in the Word document, so we as project officers can give you feedback by March 3rd. So all the projects will submit a shell by March 3rd. So your project officers will provide you feedback on that shell by the end of March, and then your approved shell will be used to submit your annual report in May in G5. As you know, those of you who have done it before, and for those of you who haven't done it before, you'll get the Dear Colleague letter end of January, beginning of February, telling you what you should be in the report. So you have the Dear Colleague letter. You're told to stop doing your data collection at the end of February because the time period is only going through February 28th. If you're CPRC, it will only be from October 1st to February 28th, and the PTI is from March 1st of last year until February 20th of this year until February 28th of 2017. So you'll be getting that information from Larry in terms of actually submitting your actual report in May. But prior to you submitting your actual report, we're asking all the projects to submit a shell of what your APR will look like as a Word document in an email by March 3rd. What's going to be in the shell? We will have you fill out the cover sheet with static information and budget information if you have it. If you don't have it, that's fine. But anything that's static, your PR number is not going to change. The name of your board chair isn't going to change. All of that, you put in all the static information in that. You will not do an executive summary because you have no data yet. You have nothing to report on yet in terms of actual data. And in Section A, your status chart, you will put in what will be all your project objectives, your project measures, and your program measures. You'll have all that in there. You will include your targets. but you will not have any actual data, and you will not have any explanation of what you did. There will be no explanation of progress. You will leave everything in Section B, budget information, blank, because again, you may not have that information yet. It'll take a while to get that. You will put in Section C your chart of your current board of directors, okay? So you will be telling us, this is what we're going to report on. We'll give you the actual data in May, but this is what we're going to report on. And then we can comment on to you, yes, especially for Section A, the status chart, yes, that's good, this makes sense, or, you've left out a program measure. Please include the program measure in here. Or maybe you need to change some of the objectives this way. Please change that. So we will come to an agreement on what you will be reporting on. So once you submit your actual report in May, there won't be any back and forth on you left out program measures, the budget data is not what we were asking, you've left out this part of the cover sheet, and so forth. We will only be focusing on actually looking at your actual performance. You will get a lot of technical assistance around that and a lot of information prior to this happening. First of all, we're going to be recording a webinar on the annual performance reports and what's expected in terms of the actual report and what will be in the shell. We are doing the recording this next week, so sometime after December 19th, the recording will be up again on the SIPR website, and we will tell you how to get it. We will be emailing you, sending you an email detailing exactly what should be in the shell to be sent in the year. We'll also include attachments with some detailed examples and instructions. As I mentioned, you'll get the Dear letter for information about the actual submission. The regional PTECs will be available for technical assistance with all of this, and your project officers, of course, will welcome any questions. I want to also stress that if you have submitted a shell prior or very recently, get in contact with your project officer, and he or she will tell you what the expectation will be around submitting the shell in March. But this will be our expectation for all the PTIs, all the Parent Training Information Centers, and all our the Community Parent Resource Centers. So like I said, we will send out that detailed information probably, not until after the new year, but we will be sending it out fairly soon, so you have that and you can work it out. It will be sent out through a blanket email in G5 to everyone. It probably will come from me, not if I'm not your project officer, but won't necessarily come from your project officer, be CC'd to them. But all of the project officers together, we've worked on the instructions, we've worked on the webinar, and we will then work on this in terms of getting this this shell in here for that. So I think we're going to have a lot of questions.
We actually have one more question that came in, Carmen. It said, since our objectives and measures will not likely change from year to year, will we continue to submit a shell each year?
We have not, the project officers, we have not discussed this. We have to see how this goes this year. If it goes very swimmingly, like you say, many of you will not be changing it from year to year. And those of you who have submitted shells in the past have used the same shell year to year. And it has proved to be quite successful. So, it's highly possible that if things go very well and we have really well-established shells, you will not be required to submit it year to year. We just think that this is the time, given the fact that all the CPRCs, or 23, were newly funded this year, and also because we're really at the beginning of either you're going to be reporting on year one or the full year one or year two for the PTIs. So we just thought that this was a good time to ask for this. But this will be a decision that's made after we see how this goes and the kinds of annual reports that we get in response to that. But we think this will take care of a lot of, like I said, a lot of the kinds of technical problems that showed up or missing information. We really have high hopes that this will be less frustrating for everyone. Okay. And do we have any other questions, Jennifer? I don't think I see one.
No more no additional questions at this time.
Okay. All right. So if they can keep coming up, I'll address them. So let me go on to the next. Here we go. Some additional information and reminders that I wanted to draw attention to you. Final regulations for disproportionality have been released, and information is available on the OSER Spotlight page, and here's the link to that. Also, information was put on the SIPR's front page about the final regulations for disproportionality. I want to mention that if you do get to read some of the regulations, and even if you've seen prior to the final regulations, the draft regulations, there was a big portion of it that really had to do with the importance of having state advisory panels involved in discussions and determining some of the issues around determining what's significant disproportionality in the state. So I really urge you to look at that and think about how you might be useful to your state advisory panels on that. Lastly, not almost lastly, you should respond to a survey. You should have gotten a survey from the Center for Technology and Disability on what the parent centers need related to technology and children with disabilities, what kind of information you need, what kind of additional resources you might need from them. Please respond to them as soon as possible. I believe almost half of you have already responded, so thank you very much. But the more that they can respond, the more they can really tailor their products to what you all do. So please respond as soon as possible. And then let's see if you have any questions, but it doesn't look like there's any questions at the moment. Okay. All right. So given the fact that there doesn't seem to be any questions at the moment, I'm going to turn it over to Deborah Jennings, who's going to discuss what's going on in terms of the SIPR. Thank you very much. Deborah?
Hi. Hi, everybody. This is Deborah Jennings, and Carmen is going to run the slide deck for me so we won't have the tech transfer challenges. But I just wanted to update everyone on a couple of things that are coming out of Parent Center Hub, the Center for Parent Information and Resources, over these next few weeks. This first thing that we're really, really excited about is the Parent Center Who Knows What, which is a website where we will be able to share with each other information about the kinds of knowledge and skills and our strengths in the various areas, particularly those topics and issues related to being a Parent Training and Information Center, our Community Parent Resource Center, and serving families of children with disabilities, and also of being stakeholders in each of our states in the various systems that serve families and children with disabilities. So in this new Parent Center Who Knows What, you will first be able to go to the website, which is www.SIPR, and that's SIPR Who Knows What, all one word, .org. And you can go to the website and you'll be able to go there and to see how you can go about, first of all, being a part of the Parent Center knowledge and expertise, but also to search and see who else is in our network who has some knowledge or expertise to share with you in some of the areas that you have interest. Next slide. So the first thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to create your profile. And the profiles that are going to be in Who Knows What will be the profiles of your Parent Center colleagues. We're excited that I think we're up to about 20 or 25 individuals who have already created their profiles and have indicated the various topic areas where they are interested in sharing their knowledge and resources with you. The other folks who will be looking at Parent Center expertise will be our partners at the Department of Education, as well as our partners in the Technical Assistance and Dissemination Centers that are funded by the Office of Special Education Programs. And they are, I think it's, for me, a great opportunity for all Parent Center staff to become a part of the many work groups and advisory groups that are impacting the programs and services of our children. And often in the Department of Ed, they may be forming a work group around a particular topic. And they're always looking to make sure that a parent voice or parent voices are included in those discussions. And so this is going to be a way for them to directly reach out to you and to invite you to be a part of these many discussions. The Parent Technical Assistance Center Network, the 8 of us, we get a lot of requests to be on advisory groups and so forth, and frankly, we're happy to do that and to be that voice, but we think it's even more important that a wide range of parent centers are participating and are a part of these discussions. And so that's one of the things I think is most exciting about Who Knows What is that it will afford the opportunity for all of us to be a part of these national conversations and national decision making and program planning. While the Department of Education and TA&D staff will be able to be a part of the Parent Center Who Knows What, they will not be the expertise that will be showing up. We just want them to really know, and we want to highlight for them our knowledge in the Parent Center network. So when is the Parent Center Who Knows What going to be available? It's actually available right now. You can go right now and to begin to create your profile. If you want to update a profile that you've created before, the website is available for you to begin to take a look at. I do want to say one thing, and that is when you're creating your profile, make sure that you're using the website, using the email address that is tied to your organization. If your email address is from another entity like Gmail or AOL, then you will really need to reach out to the folks here at the SIPR to actually gain access. But we have already set it up to expedite access for any centers who are using their parent center's email address. So, for instance, if you're here at SPAN and you use your spanNJ.org email address, you should be able to go in right away and get signed up. Next slide. We have developed a guide that gives you step-by-step information on how to create your account, and also once your account is set up, how you can go in and log in, how you can reset your password, because this is another one of those places where you'll need to set up a password, and we all have challenges in keeping up with the passwords, but no worries, you'll be able to reset your password if for some reason you forget your password. The guide shows you how to create and edit your profile, and also once that profile is set up, it will also show you how you can go about searching for individuals in the specific knowledge and expertise areas. There are probably about 40 different expertise areas. We have those areas that we're all familiar with: transition, early intervention, IEP, etc. We also include areas related to parent center management, like outreach and using technology. So definitely when you're looking, just sort of tool around and indicate each of the areas that you are, where you have knowledge and expertise. Next slide. We also will be including some how-to videos, really just short videos on each of those areas that I just mentioned in terms of how to set up your profile, login, resetting your password, etc. Several of the regional parent technical assistance centers have scheduled times for us to join you live and to present a really short training on how to go about using Parent Center Who Knows What. And everyone should be receiving the Parent Center newsletter, the Center for Parent Information Resources newsletter, the buzz from the hub, and we'll be giving you reminders about coming in and joining and why it's important for you to be a part of the Parent Center Who Knows What. If there are other suggestions or ideas that will help you to more easily access and understand and use Parent Center Who Knows What, we definitely are looking forward to your suggestions in these areas. Next slide. So we've also been really busy in terms of putting together some publications for parent centers. First of all, you probably are more than aware that the Department of Education, OSEP, the Office of Civil Rights, have been very busy in putting out guidance and dear colleague letters around some topics that are really important for parents. And much of this guidance is to help states and school districts and others of our systems partners to better implement IDEA as well as Section 504, and to make sure that the programs and their services and their activities are really aligned with and addressing the needs of the diversity of students that are served in our schools and our early intervention programs. So we are going about a process of actually creating briefs on these various topics that will help to, first of all, put that information into sort of more accessible portions or components that are more related to the work that we do as parent centers. And also these briefs connect us directly to additional resources that can help us in terms of actually working with families around this guidance. We have already published a guidance on the behavior supports and school discipline, and that also includes a webinar that we offered in conjunction with the National Disability Rights Network and NASD, the National Association of State Directors of Special Education. And as you'll see right now, we have a featured resource that was probably recently replaced by the disproportionality information, but we have a new resource on school resource officers and how parent centers can work with families and provide information to families about the use of school resource officers in their schools and districts, and how they can, the kinds of information they should make sure that the schools are providing to parents and also to these school resource officers. And then our next topic that we will be covering is the FATE guidance that came out that was particularly related to making sure that our students have access, equitable access to the general education curriculum. Also, very busy U.S. Department of Education. Just over a year ago, the department, not the department, I'm sorry, the Congress adopted the latest federal law for education, the Every Student Succeeds Act, and we have just gotten the final approvals and are posting our Parent Center Guide to stakeholder engagement in the implementation of this new ESSA law. And this guide, it will be super helpful for you, particularly in making sure that that state plan addresses the needs of students with disabilities. It walks you through the elements of the state plan and gives you a series of questions and points to make sure that you are including in the conversations that you're having with your state, and that you can also share this guide with other advocates in your communities and your states and your school districts. We also are putting together about 8 fact sheets on some of the key components like assessments, standards, what does ESSA really say about students with disabilities, and so that's another piece. And then we are also planning for training of trainer materials that you can use in terms of providing trainings for families and your co-advocates in your areas, so that you'll have these materials available and you won't have to create new training materials. You may know the regulations were recently promulgated that particularly address assessments and accountability, and so these training materials we're now ready and in a place where we can really start to put together the training of training materials and finish up the fact sheets. Next slide. Okay. And then there are 2 topic areas that are also going to be the focus of our resource and publication development this year. The first is serving youth and juvenile justice systems, and there's a really big push right now to make sure that students with disabilities are receiving the educational services that they need even when they are incarcerated, whether it's in the juvenile justice system or in states' correctional facilities. And so we've put together a group of parent centers who are our advisors on putting together these materials, as well as a couple of technical advisors, and we've just actually had our first meeting this past Tuesday and have put together began to put together our frame of the kinds of materials and resources and formats that you guys will find helpful in your work in this area. And so just really do stay tuned. We're going to send out a really short survey, probably 3 questions, yes, no, after the new year, and then we'll be using that information to identify some parent center exemplars that we'll be able to share across the parent center network. We have a similar process for creating some resources around disproportionality, and these resources for disproportionality will have a really strong focus on engaging stakeholders like our state advisory panels and our parent organizations and parent leaders at the state as well as the district level in addressing the systemic change needs related to the disproportionate representation of some groups in special education, in the disciplinary actions, as well as in placement. And so we definitely invite you, if you're interested in working with us as a parent center advisor, and also if you have some exemplars of work in this topic area, we would love to include you as we're developing these resources using our user-centered processes. So I think, Carmen, the next slide is not my slide. If you have any questions.
No. There's a couple of questions already in the question pod, Deborah. One of them is the password for Who Knows What the same as the one for workspaces?
Only if you make it so. As you're setting up your passwords, you can, my secret is I use basically the same password with a little difference for every website that I have. So it is it will be a different login place, but you can set up your passwords to be the same passwords, and because there aren't like big restrictions on what your password can or cannot be.
Great. And then the other question is, when and where will the ESSA materials be available?
The stakeholders guide will be available any second. Where they're right now being put up on the parentcenterhub.org, and as soon as the guide is available, we will be sending out an email. I think my time estimate is December the 22nd. And so it'll be, they should be up. It will probably be up before that time, but that guide should be up any second.
Great. And then Miriam made a comment that you can also use the same username can be the same for both Who Knows What and the workspaces. So that was just a comment in the questions. Okay. Well, I don't think I see any other questions here. I just want to thank you all for everything that you do. I know that having this original another requirement around the annual reports can be challenging, but I really do think that in the long run it will be helpful for everyone so that we can really get annual reports that are less frustrating for you to complete and also do, again, justice to the work you're doing. I just want to wish everybody a wonderful holiday season, and we will talk in the new year. But thanks again, everyone, for being on the call. Thank you, Deborah, for providing more information about what the SIPR is doing. And we'll send out information about our next quarterly call in March sometime soon. But thanks, everyone. Take care now. Bye.